Hi, everybody. And in today's session, we're going to look at the VLOOKUP function. I think it's one of the most interesting functions out there in Excel. And again, it's very powerful. And there are certain variations and better functions also available, which we'll look in the next videos. But for today's video, we're going to look at the VLOOKUP function. And let me first arrange the data. I have some data already with me to explain this. What I've done is I've created a table of students again, and it's just like four columns here: the roll call, the first name, the last name, and marks. And using this, we'll try to, see how we can use the VLOOKUP function to get an appropriate response. So let's get started. So what we'll do is, we'll try to see how VLOOKUP works here. The thing with VLOOKUP is it's a function where if you give it a particular value as a search criteria, you can specify what corresponding, if you find a match, what corresponding field in that particular record you want as a response. So for example, if you VLOOKUP Sally, which is located in E4, you specify E4, then you specify the range where you want to look for the response value, which we'll specify later. So you'll specify the range is that from E4 to G8. So that's like E4 to G8. This is where we want to look for a response value, E4 to G8. And so let me first quickly reformat this E4 comma E4 to G8. Then what I'll say is, what is the response column from where we want to fetch the response? So for example, if we are having E4 to G8, then E column becomes my column number 1. And if I want Smith, if I want the last name as a response in that particular fetched value. So if the function looks up the value for E4, that is Sally, it's asking us, what do you want as a response? Do you want Sally itself as a response, which obviously doesn't make sense. So do you want the marks or do you want the last name? So what I'm going to do here is specify that I want the last name, which will become column number 2 in the range of the selected values. If I would have selected from D4 to G8, then Smith would have been column number 3, but here our selection is E4 to G8, so that becomes column number 2. So what we are actually specifying here is that if you look up the value for Sally, then return the last name as a response. And then the final value will be true or false. If we say false, what we are trying to say is that we want an exact match, not an approximate match. So we want an accurate, exact response. So we have to look up Sally itself. Sal will not suffice. It should be precisely Sally. And then please return us the last name if you find Sally in the table. So let us try this out and press enter. There we go. So we have the response as the last name, which we find here. Um, there is one small known issue with this function is that I'll try to explain that with an example. If I do a variation with true, you know, so if I say true uh, for an approximate response, what happens is that I get a certain problem, but when we look that up, we know that this is a known issue. And what I'm trying to do here is, again, trying to fetch something for Sal, which is E8. So my key value is E8. I say look up the response for it in E4 to G8. And my response can be, again, the last name expected is F8. And first, let's try this out with accurate response, which is false. So again, we seem to be running into a problem here. E4 to, okay. I have not specified that I want last name as the response. So, okay. So if we do this and remove F8 here and say false, I get the appropriate response. What I do want to try is, with this example, if I put the value as true, then Sally in the first row also becomes a candidate for response because it's an approximate response then. But what actually happens is you get not applicable, or you do not get an appropriate response here. And this is actually a problem, and it's a known issue, and we can't probably do anything about it at the moment. And so the value of this function lies in asking for an accurate response and getting that response back from the function. If you do not specify false as a value, what happens is the function assumes true as default. And let's try to do that. And this should work because for Sally, although it is expecting even an approximate response, but it does find an accurate response. So it works here. So yes, so this is about it for the VLOOKUP function. I think for very large data sets, it's a great value addition because, if you take examples of, let's say, a sheet which has the stock details, daily stock details, and you have the line item, and you want to look up the cost, I think that's a very good example of where you just put the line item or item ID, and you want to look up the total cost of that item. These kind of scenarios, just the VLOOKUP is really helpful. And I think that's about it for today for the VLOOKUP function. And hope to catch up with you soon. And until next time, bye bye.